Books, the thing most people are indulging in less and less nowadays. Books can be about anything you can imagine, whether it be a detailed history of toilets, gruesome stories about conspiracies to commit pedicide, or more wholesome alternatives if you prefer that. Can we really blame contemporary book covers for the declining amount of people who read for enjoyment? They say never to judge a book by its cover. But if that were true, wouldn't all books have no cover whatsoever? And I must admit, if the cover of Space Raptor Butt Invasion doesn't pique your interest, I don't know what will. So anyway, today I'm going to judge some books by their covers, and to unleash my inner critic, I am going to need my critic glasses. First off, I'd like to introduce to you the best-selling author Chuck Tingle, renowned for his literary masterpieces such as Space Raptor Butt Invasion, and other works whose covers I will soon be judging. In terms of what a book cover is supposed to do, Space Raptor Butt Invasion excels at standing out. I immediately have a lot of questions. How is this dinosaur in space? How is this probably half-naked man in space too? What happens next? My only gripe with this cover is the scientific inaccuracy and ambiguity as to what kind of raptor this dinosaur is supposed to represent, since it doesn't look like any other raptor species we actually know about. The other details seem quite plausible to me, to be honest, so I'd rank it a 9 out of 10. Here's another one by Chuck Tingle, blown by this handsome, sentient bubblegum who is also a successful landscape architect. In my opinion, this cover throws simply too much information at the average reader to hold up the expected promise of a satisfying plot development, since most of its broad strokes have already been put on display on its cover. It may seem like a bad move, but one could argue this is actually a move of absurdist brilliance. Because the plot appears to be so ridiculous, the only way to market this book is to tell the potential buyer upfront exactly what the book is really about. In this way, they have to read the book themselves to actually believe if it is true. Still, I cannot ignore how the cover spoils the most important parts of the book before the reader has even read the blurb on the back side. Therefore, I find a 7 out of 10 to be a fitting score. This book, on the other hand, is truly a masterpiece. Unlike Blown by this handsome sentient bubblegum who is also a successful landscape architect, the cover of Trans Wizard Harriet Porber and the Theatre of Love doesn't tell us anything about the actual story. And yet the image presented here contains so many anomalous components that all work together to create one of the most original yet spellbinding covers I have ever seen. Who is the dreaded Cereal Man? Who is the mystical dapper rattlesnake? Do they really have male goth Parasaurolophus and swords women in Las Vegas? This book is practically begging to be read. 10 out of 10. This one just confuses me. It suffers from the same problem as Blown by this handsome sentient bubblegum who's also a successful landscape architect. But in this case, the problem is even more of an issue. It's one thing to attempt to explain the entire plot of your story on its cover, it's another thing to do it quite poorly and to leave the reader with more questions than answers. It's not always a bad thing to stir up questions before you read a book, but I am having trouble figuring out what this book is really about at all. 5 out of 10. One does not simply forget one of the most important fantasy books of the last century. Of course, I am talking about Bilbo le Hobbit. This cover is pretty decent actually, but it is quite funny how I can imagine this could be a movie poster for a spoof on The Hobbit made by Mel Brooks. Why is Gandalf's staff so minuscule?
That's what she said!
Old illustrations of dragons can be rough, so I can forgive the depiction of Smaug, but why does Bilbo look like that? That is not what Bilbo is supposed to look like. He is not supposed to be this handsome. Anyway, 6 out of 10. Okay. If the Bible had a cover such as this one, I would convert to Christianity in a heartbeat. If I was in a bookstore and they only had this book, but not part 1, I would buy this book without any doubts in my mind. I don't have much else to say about this cover, except that it's absolutely fantastic. 10 out of 10. Wow. I guess we're back to The Hobbit again. Or should I say Bilbo le Hobbit? Say what you will about the previous cover for Bilbo le Hobbit, but at least Bilbo was handsome. Now Bilbo has been downgraded to ginger and curly. And I'm going to assume the creatures he's trying to fend off are the wargs. But why is one of them holding a drumstick and some kind of weapon? This cover is ugly and it makes no sense. 3 out of 10. That creature is one of the ugliest things I have ever seen. That monster is quite handsome though.
Comedy.
I'm just joking. That thing looks like a mix between a wolf and a moth, two things that should not go together, and this cover proves that they indeed do not go together. Even the fonts used here are really dull and awkward. That woman is boring. 2 out of 10. Continuing the genre of extremely literal book titles, this is an example of how it can be done well. The title, That Time I Got Drunk and Yeeted a Love Potion at a Werewolf, is very easy to understand, and it seems to be a great representation of the book itself. It is effective at interesting those who would be interested in werewolf romance novels, and also at fending off people who would rather not read such things. The illustration is also done by a talented artist. The cover is simple yet effective, but maybe I would have preferred an actual werewolf on the cover than just some random dude. 9 out of 10. What a very whimsical cover this one is. I'm sure this book must be about a futuristic utopia of some kind. I'm not sure what this face is about though, or why Winston and Julia appear to be merged with the screen, but in all seriousness, this cover is hilariously bad at showcasing what 1984 was really about, so 2 out of 10. This cover screams 2002. I find it interesting how the title and the author's names are also barely legible. Maybe the cover artist was so ashamed by their work they wanted to cover up the person who wrote this book. At least Scholastic seems to be proud they published this one, good for them I guess. The concept is also quite strange, and the execution is maybe even stranger. I cannot think of many reasons why I would actually consider reading this book, except for maybe how goofy this cover is. I would say this book falls into the cheap 2002 CGI the writer's barely disguised fetish category. Ooh. I did not see that coming.
Comedy.
I have never heard about this book, but its cover is most certainly piquing my interest. This could either be fantastic or terrible, but if the book itself is as good as its cover, it would be fantastic. 10 out of 10.
Wow.
How to talk to your cat about gun safety. Do I have a cat? No. Do I have a gun? Also no. Would I read this book? Yes. 8 out of 10. I'm not sure what this cover is trying to tell me. Is this a fictional novel or an actual guide? Is the guy on the front the main character, a random dude, or a certified expert on witchcraft? Even though I would love to be initiated into witchcraft, I find this cover to be rather ambiguous. 4 out of 10. This cover makes it quite clear what this book is about. I probably know a few people who would love to read this book, but despite that, the man on the cover just slightly concerns me. He looks like he is committing a crime, and he looks very happy to be getting away with it. He is a refined gentleman, allowed to steal mushrooms like that. 6 out of 10. The Beatles, illustrated lyrics. I can't think of any Beatles songs about melting candle people, so in that regard, 2 out of 10. However, since it is also unintentionally funny, I'll give it a 6 out of 10. This one really scares me. It also confuses me greatly. I don't understand a single thing about this one, or what the book could be about. People Who Need to Die, Cell Phones, by Victor Rook. Does the title imply that people are cell phones, or that cell phones are people? Or is the People Who Need to Die part of the title of this series, and is cell phones just another installment? Why is this book suggesting that cell phones are the best weapons against the scums of the earth? I'm confused. 1 out of 10. This planet fucking rules. Well, this cover fucking rules too. This is exactly what an S-tier cover looks like. The cover and the title complement each other perfectly, and I don't feel I'm missing any information to know what the basic premise of this book is about. So 10 out of 10. Franz Kafka, The Metamorphosis. Where do I even begin with this one? The color scheme reminds me of that one Talking Heads album, except that this one is even worse. The font is ugly, the cover is ugly, and I'm pretty sure I much prefer Samsa in the bug form rather than his human form in this version. But that is not a compliment. 2 out of 10. I don't think the JPEG to transparent PNG conversion was entirely successful in this instance. It may be just me, but I'm getting the idea that this cover does not entirely fit the general mood of Franz Kafka's original intention of the metamorphosis. 1 out of 10. George Orwell, Animal Farm. Waddles, is that you?
Greetings, friends. It is I, Waddles the pig.
I didn't know Waddles was a symbol for totalitarianism. Again, I'm not sure this cover is really giving off the vibes George Orwell was originally going for, so I'm going to have to give it a 4 out of 10. This cover is great at letting the reader know that they should stay far away from this book. 2 out of 10.
Horrible.
Guys, the new Kendrick Lamar drama is out of this world.
I'm a pedophile.
This one also just really confuses me, but somehow it works. What the heck is this about? I simply need to know. Maybe this family was so enchanted by their delicious fish sticks they crashed the car? There's probably a lot of drama in this book. I would read this. 8 out of 10.
Yummy.
This cover implies several things. First of all, the coronavirus seems to be a man, so either she explicitly developed a mutation of the coronavirus that took the shape of the guy, Or the virus itself is more intelligent than we thought.
Hello, everybody!
Either way, the protagonist seems to be quite selfish for putting her own romantic interests over the health and safety of millions of people. For a story that can only be ridiculous, I think this cover fits actually quite well. So 7 out of 10. Okay, that is certainly a creature I'd never like to see. I bet the protagonists in this book must have been surprised by how ugly the creature they were searching for turned out to be. Also, why does the cover say it's the first book in the human origin species? Is the author telling us that this is what our ancestors used to look like? Are we really related to Bigfoot? I hope not. This cover is ugly and confusing, so 2 out of 10. This one is definitely wild. I'm not sure mountain biking, skydiving, and flying women were integral subjects in the work of Oscar Wilde. In terms of accuracy, this cover would be a 1 out of 10, but I still think it's absolutely hilarious, so I'll give it a 5. Look guys, it's Winston in his edgy rebellious phase. Big Brother was definitely not watching the guy who printed this bootleg version of 1984. 8 out of 10. This book looks so jaunty, although they really should have put the most important character in there. Waddles, of course. 4 out of 10. So this is the Japanese version of Catcher in the Rye. I'm not sure what this cover was really going for, but I'm going to assume that the guy there is Holden, and that the woman is maybe Phoebe. I'm not sure I like how this looks like a romance novel. You know, I'm sure Holden would love this cover. This is the least phony cover I've ever seen. 2 out of 10.
No.
Who was Jesus? I don't know. Tell me, was his head really that big? I don't know.
No.
6 out of 10. Recipes for romance? More like a recipe for disaster. I can't believe it's not butter. Well, what is it? Please tell me. Actually, I don't want to know. 5 out of 10. This time they're not turning the other cheek. Alternate Warriors. Edited by Mike Resnick. Gandhi, what are you doing? Okay, this one is very good. This cover gives me the sudden urge to declare independence from the British Empire with any means necessary. 10 out of 10. Anyway, those are all the book covers that I have prepared for you today. If you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and maybe I'll make another video about judging albums by their covers, or I'll make a part 2 of this. Watch this video. It's completely unrelated to this video, but it's really good nonetheless. Anyway, goodbye.